Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Draft Room. This is the NFL Draft Podcast of the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call into the show and give me your thoughts, your questions, your comments, your mock drafts, your concerns, your gripes and grievances, 608-561-3243. Otherwise, which we do have a caller, by the way, today we're going to stick with special teams, and that is going to be, it's going to be not tougher than I thought. I thought it would be tough to find content, and instead, it's going to be tough to kind of get it all in because there's a lot of guys, and I don't want to just say, here's who they are, and here's their PFF punt return grade, and on to the next guy. I want to actually look at them as prospects the way we have everybody else, and to give them that, that little breakdown of their profile and whatnot. But, there's a lot of them. So we got to kind of probably do a little bit less than we have been in the past, but we'll see. I don't exactly know, but we will get there when we get there. I did do quite a bit of research for special teams because it's kind of tricky. It's not as easy as some of the other ones where you just look at the consensus board. There is a consensus board for kickers and punters, but there really isn't for special teamers, returners, etc. And so what I did, as I mentioned on the other shows, I've basically downloaded PFF's entire database. And so I used some little bit of AI with Python and really just compared the big board to some PFF grades to kind of parse these guys out. Because that's the hard part about PFF. You can sort by whatever, but I don't know who these people are. Are they even in the 2026 draft? I don't want to deal with all that crap. So I just had it kind of combine the prospects in the big board as it's laid out, the consensus big board, against the PFF numbers and created kind of a new sheet that has all the grades with all the prospects and all that stuff. It's one new thing. Anyways, I turned a little bit of a quick and dirty sheet, and I put that over on Patreon. I want to make sure I'm continuing to pump some stuff over for you guys. I'm getting some regular subscribers over there. As I've said before, some of it'll be free, some of it won't. Just kind of whatever I'm feeling in the moment, I guess. So feel free to join for free. You'll get a decent amount of stuff, especially as I'm trying to grow it. I'd rather more people come over than not. But obviously, if you're supporting the show, which I definitely appreciate, I want to make sure you guys get something a little special once in a while. All right. Without further ado, why don't we go ahead and play our new caller? Now, this is not, I don't believe, an actual new caller, but it's a new caller to this show, and so it counts.
Hey, Ryan, it's Drew from Green Bay, and I know you said you're taking notes on who people like, so I wanted to get in my favorite, of course, Jake Slaughter.
Love it.
That I've been watching for like 2 to 3 years, been hoping that we could get him, and his last year, one of his best games was against Georgia, so it's nice to see him performing well against top competition. When I watch him, he's so quick off the ball. I know he has an advantage being the center, but still, he is 23, but I actually think that's not a bad thing. If we're going to take him and put him as starter right away, and then say we move or cut Alton Jenkins, then it would actually be a benefit for him to be more mature as starter and have more snaps under him. He also he only allowed like 1 sack in 800 snaps, so that's really good. But he has been really consistent over years, and when you have serious injuries to worry about with Connor Lew and all that, I just think he's the one that makes sense. And there are some websites like the Draft Buzz that have him as a number 1 center. So hopefully we can get him. And then I did want to say that I do love Fernando Mendoza. I know he's going to go like a number 1 overall, but he's just got a quick release, and I think he is worth the hype. And I'm not really a big fan of the other guys, but Dante Moore from Oregon, that went back. I actually had him as the 3rd under Ty Simpson,
Okay.
And so I think there's a pretty big drop-off between every quarterback after Mendoza.
Right.
And Trinidad Chambliss did get that medical
Yeah, I saw that.
ability to go back for one more year, so he's probably not going to be coming out anymore. The quarterback from Ole Miss, so he won in court. So I wanted to mention that because I didn't hear that in any of your podcasts. So, but anyways, I will talk to you later. There's some voice notes for you, and as I get deeper into it, I'll have more. All right, bye.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you calling in. And yeah, I will. In fact, I'll make sure I do that right now. So I added the ability to, in the activity feed, the news feed, whatever, you can add MP3s now because just for this specific reason. I think I'm going to make it a premium feature because that's going to take up a lot of space and whatnot. But it's mostly for me. And if you have a reason for it, then whatever. But yeah, if you have access to this, so right now it's uploading. If you go look at Jake Slaughter, you'll see a little MP3 player, and this call that you just called in will be on there. So that is now permanent. As far as Jake Slaughter, we went through him, and one of the notes on him, obviously, he didn't do super well at the was it the Senior Bowl or whichever one he went to. But there was the note that said a few team sources felt Lou would be the top center. A few said Florida's Jake Slaughter could be the top center. One said Logan Jones could be the top center. So it's not a rare opinion, I guess, that Slaughter, or it's certainly not unanimous that Lou is the top center. Let's put it that way. And Slaughter is absolutely in that conversation. And I agree with what you're saying. Obviously, the Packers generally, it's not 100%, but generally are looking for the younger prospects for obvious reasons. Everybody is. It's not just the Packers. Everybody's looking for younger prospects. It ends up being better, but you have to understand the situation as well. I mean, if we had Elton Jenkins at 27 years old or 28 or whatever, and you knew that in 2-3 years he was going to be gone, obviously a 21-year-old would be ideal. And if he comes in and takes the job immediately, fine. But in a situation like this where we need a guy day one, not just for the center position where he is, and I know Sean Ryan, a lot of people are I just heard somebody say it the other day, I lost my mind. Sean Ryan really, once they switched him to center, he started looking real good. What the hell are you talking about? He did not ever look good, ever. Anyways, a veteran presence, and I use the term loosely because everyone, we need to go get veterans. I just mean a guy that is, he's seasoned. He's played a few years. He's got the ability to command an offense under his belt a little bit. That doesn't have to be an age thing, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt that the guy basically started for 3 years on top of having 2 years prior to that. I mean, he's got 5 years in school. He played extremely well for 3 years, as is a good run and pass blocker. I could see that as sort of an exception to the rule where, first of all, 23 is not 25. But still, a guy that we need day one to step in, I think that could end up working to your advantage, especially considering, he broke out back when he was, 21 or something. So it's not like this is some thing where the age you have to be concerned about, because maybe it's not going to translate or any of that kind of nonsense. As far as the quarterback stuff, I haven't done like a news and notes thing recently. I should have mentioned the Trinidad thing. I had it set aside. That's kind of the problem with the two podcasts is I see it and then I go to mention it on the Packernet podcast and I'm like, no, I'll save it for the other one. And then there's not really any news aside from maybe one thing that I have saved, and so I'm like, well, I'll just not do it. I should have mentioned it, but I didn't. I don't even know what other news I have over there, and I'm not going to do it again today. Whatever else is over there, I'm not going to. Actually, I have it right in front of me here. Is there anything else? Nope, that's my one note, Trinidad. And I didn't mention it, but anywho, we'll see what happens with him. But I mean, he's fighting to get back in. He won his case, so why would he not do it? But yeah, as far as the Mendoza thing, I think that is the consensus. You got Mendoza, and whatever you think of him, the consensus is after that is a big drop-off. So that seems to be pretty unanimous. Okay, we're not going to take a break because we have too much to get through. Again, appreciate you, Drew. So let me start off with this. There's different categories, and I'm really going mostly off of PFF and the consensus board. But you've got your kickers, you've got your punters, you've got your long snappers. Those are the ones that the consensus board does have. In fact, we can look at that real quick. And so if we call draftable, let's just call it the top 300 are the draftable guys, and outside of that is roughly the UDFA. There are two kickers, Will Farron, kicker out of BYU, and Drew Stevens, kicker out of Iowa, at 279 and 271. So these are very, very back end of the NFL draft. 257 is the final pick in the draft. So I just went out to 300 to kind of, widen the search a little bit. But these are technically outside of that, putting them in UDFA territory, meaning kind of 2, maybe 0 draftable kickers. For punters, there's one. It's Ryan Eckley, punter out of Michigan State. And then looking at long snappers, there are 2, both of them just like the kickers outside of the 257 range, inside of the 300. Bo Gardner out of Georgia at 277, and Luke Basso out of Oregon at 273. So those are the only guys that are listed, and you can go from there, and that's about the best you can get. Again, I wanted to go a little deeper and look at some of the grades. The thing that always annoys me about this is some of the best kickers, and I feel like there's not. I mean, I'm obviously wrong, but some of the best kickers, and I feel like kicking is kicking. If you kick well in college, it's not like, well, it's not going to translate to the pros. What's not going to translate? They literally don't compete with anybody. It's you, the ball, and the field goal post. What the heck is different? It's the exact same thing. A lot of the best kickers are out in the 500, 600, 700 range. Punters, long snappers, returners, etc. And some of the best or the highest kickers on these lists are like the worst kickers. So I don't understand it, and it annoys me when the Packers do it. When, I forget who did we draft recently? Maybe it was a punter. I don't know. I think it was J.K. Scott, maybe. I think it might have been. I don't know. But it was annoying because there were guys that grade out really well, meaning, they make all their field goals or whatever the case may be. And then you got guys that don't do well. No, it was, what's his name's brother? Anders Carlson, right? Drafted him in the 6th round. He did not have good grades. And, I always put it aside like, well, whatever, grades aren't going to tell you the whole story, and there's obviously something to this. By the way, our special teams coordinator, who obviously handpicked this kid, who was the coach of Daniel Carlson for the Raiders, we also don't give him any crap for that pick, the Anders Carlson pick. Anyways, he didn't do well. His stats were not good, his grades were not good, and there were guys that were significantly better. And we go this route, and I don't freaking understand it. I don't know if it's just that they have, really strong legs or the weather conditions. I don't know, but it annoys the living crap out of me. I don't know why we can't just say, hey, this guy has kicked for a long time and doesn't miss field goals. We should draft him. No, I kind of like this guy who has he's 6'7" and has a long leg and a lot of tools and potential. Dude, shut up. Just get the good one, will you? I don't freaking understand. Anyways, with that, why don't we look at the kickers real quick? So there are 10 of them that are graded. One of them is a punter, Eckley, who obviously has done some kicking as well. But if you look at where they rank on the consensus board, there's one guy that ranks to the 90s. One is very close and is draftable. But he has a 92.9 grade. You think that sounds really good. And you say, yeah, it is. He was 40 for 40 on extra points and made 27 of 29 of his field goals. He missed 1 in the 30-yard range and 1 in the 50-plus range. Seems decent. He's on the consensus board at 591, meaning he's not even going to get picked up as a UDFA. He probably will, but I mean, how weird. But his name is Kensei Matsuzawa of Hawaii. his career kicking record going back to 2024 is 72 of 72 on extra points and 39 of 45 on field goals, which is 87%, which is very high. He missed one kick in the 20-yard range, 3 in the 30-yard range, 1 in the 40-yard range, 1 in the 50-yard range. Now, he hasn't kicked a ton of 50-plus kicks, and maybe that's the whole point, is that they just don't think he can really do it. Maybe he barely has leg and certainly can't hit a 60-yarder, and so it's not worth having the discussion. I don't know, maybe. But the second highest graded kicker is Drew Stevens. He's one of the guys that is in that sort of draftable range. The interesting thing, if you are, for example, a Packer fan, or the positive thing, is that if you are looking for a kicker, I've made my stance on that known, but it's certainly worth bringing in competition, whether you draft him or not, whatever. But the point is, the Packers have 3 seventh-round picks, including the final pick in the draft. So the good news is, if you want the top kicker, you're not going to have to use a 4th, 5th, 6th round pick on this guy. Your 7th round picks will suffice to get probably any of these kickers. Who knows when somebody's going to pull the trigger. But you shouldn't need to use anything more than a 7th to get a kicker. And when you have 3 of them, I don't know if I'd want to do it personally again, because McManus, in my mind, is very much the front runner. I don't want to expend a draft resource on a guy that I have, less than 50% chance of making the 53-man roster. That seems silly to me. But if you are in the market for a top kicker, I think there are some pretty solid options for you. So Drew Stevens has an 89.6 PFF grade, obviously very, very high. He has made 41 of 42, or 98% of his extra points, 22 of his 28 field goals, which is 78.6%, which is not terrible, and it's also not a ton of kicks. However, if you look at his grades, he has been very, very good for 4 straight years. 87, 85, 93, and 90 essentially have been his 4 years as a kicker. He has a 98% extra point rate and an 80% field goal rate through his career. He is 63% from 50-plus, having attempted 19 kicks, making 12 of them. Anyways, a couple little notes on Mr. Drew Stevens out of Iowa. He is Iowa's all-time field goal leader. He broke Nate Kading's 20-year record with his 68th career make against Penn State in 2025. Kading texted him to congratulate him. Stevens finished with 76 career makes, good for 4th in Big Ten history. 4 career game-winning field goals. When Iowa needed a kick to win the game, Stevens delivered over and over. The 53-yarder to beat Nebraska in the 2024 Heroes game is the signature moment. Stevens turned down scholarship offers from multiple Power 5 programs to walk on at Iowa as a true freshman. He won the starting job by week 3, earned a scholarship after his freshman season, went on to become the most prolific kicker in program history. He's got a big leg. With NFL kickers like Brandon Aubrey regularly hitting from 60-plus, teams are placing more value on range than ever before, which makes sense and probably why a lot of the other guys are not there. Stevens' 58-yard make against Oregon and his 12 career 50-plus yarders make him relevant in this conversation. He's willing to attempt from 66 yards against Penn State. It was blocked, showing the coach's staff's confidence in his distance. He did kick at the Senior Bowl, did very well. He actually nailed a 51-yard field goal into swirling wind conditions, which trimmed the Team America's lead to 17-3 for the national team. So obviously that's what you like about the guy. He's got a big leg and he can kick in weather. Shows up at the Senior Bowl and drills a 51-yarder in wind. So that's going to obviously boost his stock. Then there's Will Farron out of BYU. Listed at 6'3", 175. He's 3 years. He graded out 79, 92, 86. Has a 99.2% extra point rate, which is remarkable. He made 122 out of 123 extra points. That's disgusting. 82% on his field goals. He is 100% from the 20-yard range. He is 96% from the 30-yard range, 67% from the 40-yard range, 61% from the 50-plus yard range. Clearly, if you get under 40 yards, this guy does not miss. It's a little bit more iffy beyond that. But he has made 8 50-plus yarders, so it's not like he can't do it. but he's one of the more decorated kickers in BYU program history. We already went through his stats, obviously. Grew up in Kaysville, Utah as a diehard BYU fan. Taped pictures of BYU kickers on his bedroom wall. BYU passed on recruiting him out of high school. He went to Boise State, served his mission, and then finally came home to Provo through the transfer portal. Kalani Sitake openly admitted BYU made a mistake in not recruiting him. It's a redemption story that BYU fans absolutely loved. Farron's defining moment is his 44-yard game-winning field goal against Utah in 2024 that kept BYU undefeated season alive during their magical Big 12 campaign. In the biggest rivalry game of the year, on the road in Salt Lake City, Farron nailed it. That's the clip NFL teams will watch when evaluating his clutch gene. Farron served a 2-year LDS mission in Vancouver before starting his collegiate career, making him older than most prospects. For teams that value maturity, leadership, and character, this is a plus. He's married, grounded, and has a perspective on life beyond football that coaches appreciate. Farron set a BYU record with 22 consecutive made field goals spanning from 2024 season into the early 2025, including clutch kicks in the Alamo Bowl and the Utah game. That streak demonstrated a level of consistency and confidence that is elite, even if the back half of 2025 couldn't sustain it. BYU has traditionally been known as a kicker factory, the way Iowa and Florida have been, it hasn't been, but Farron has the tools to put BYU kickers on the NFL map. He'll be competing against Drew Stevens of Iowa and other Senior Bowls for bragging rights as a top kicker prospect. Finally, Farron's willingness and ability to execute a fake field goal run against UCF in 2024, a play he and the holder and the snapper practiced for weeks, showed athleticism and football IQ beyond just kicking. It's a small detail, but it speaks to his versatility and competitive fire. All right, so those guys will officially be on the big board with all their details, much more in detail than what we talked about here. We'll leave it at that, though, for the kickers. Again, so let me just go through the grades here. So Matsuzakawa, kicker out of Hawaii, 93. Drew Stevens, who we talked about out of Iowa, is 90. Trey Smack out of Florida has an 87 PFF grade. He's at consensus 324, not impossible. He gets a UDFA thing. Will Farron, who we talked about at 278, had an 86 grade. Alex McPherson out of Auburn, 84. He's at 675, probably won't get a shot. Brock Taylor, 83 grade, 565. At 568, Carter Davis out of Boston College with an 81 grade. Dominic Zavada out of Michigan with a 77 grade. He's at 307. He will be getting some looks for sure. I've heard, I forget who it was, somebody painted him as maybe the top kicker, so I'm sure somebody will take a flyer at him. Connor Talty out of Alabama is at 573, and then Bert Auburn out of Miami, ironically, is at 780. He had a 68 grade. So that's the entire list outside of the punter, who had a kicking grade at 60, probably because he had to attempt one or two or something. I don't know. All right, let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll do punters and long snappers, and then finally we'll look at some of these other categories. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So Ryan Eckley is the one punter. He's spent 4 years at Michigan State. He's originally from Florida, so his moniker is kind of the Florida kid that embraced the cold. But started punting in 2023. His grades were 86, 74, 82, so he's been pretty consistently solid throughout his final year here. 47.7 yards per attempt, 40.3 net, 60 was his long. His career long is 67, and that was with a 4.07 hang time in 2025. That was the first time he averaged over 4. First of all, you've got Michigan State, which just saw Behringer get drafted in the, I think, 6th round. Yeah, from MSU to the Patriots in the 6th round of 2023, and then was just in the Super Bowl. So it is somewhat of a, it might be overstating it to call it Punter U, but it's definitely a good program. Eckley surpassed both Behringer's MSU record and Torrey Taylor's Big Ten record for career punting average. Taylor was a 4th-round pick. Behringer was a 6th-round pick who now is in the NFL. Eckley was statistically better than both of them. The math writes itself for the draft board. By the way, his projection is rounds 4 to 6. So even though he's on the consensus big board, which granted, I think when the consensus big board, especially this early, it's kind of iffy in the later things. Not a lot of people putting punters on their big boards and whatnot, but he is considered to be fourth to sixth round prospect. Another interesting note is that the narrative at the Senior Bowl was more so about his hands than his legs. He does have quarterback background, which gives him natural catch and release ability that most punters don't have. In the modern NFL, where punters must be flawless holders and clean ball handlers, this is a legitimate differentiator. One NFL special teams coach called bad hands a non-starter for NFL punters and praised Eckley specifically. So, good holder. Eckley has had the longest punt of Senior Bowl practice at 74.4 yards. That number will circulate on draft Twitter and create buzz. It's the kind of eye-popping moment that sticks in scouts' minds and moves a specialist up boards. He also chose to walk on at MSU specifically to learn behind Behringer. He could have gone somewhere and started immediately, but he had the maturity to take the long view, sit a year, learn from one of the best, take the job. That patience and strategic approach to his career is a character indicator that NFL front offices will appreciate. All right, let's get into the most interesting thing that has ever happened on any podcast ever, and let's talk about long snappers. Bo Gardner, 6'5", 250. Honestly, doesn't even grade out super well. 2 years at UCLA, 2 at Georgia. He did have his final year as a 72 grade. That's just a special teams grade, which is kind of where this gets weird because it's kind of just a catch-all. PFF does not put a lot of investment, at least on the public-facing side, into special teams statistics. So that's where it gets to be a little bit different because you got, the snapping portion, which is obviously its own thing. Then you have, the kick return, kick coverage, punt return, punt coverage, field goal block, and field goal kick units. Not even talking about the actual returning or the kicking, just the other people that are there doing jobs. That all gets bundled up into special teams grade. But obviously not a massive amount of data here, but Gardner won the award named after the greatest long snapper in NFL history. It's the single most important credential on his resume and the thing that separates him from every other snapper in the class, and that is the Manelli Award. He won the Manelli Award, so there you go. Georgia had a very good special teams trio. Gardner, Brett Thorson, who got the Ray Guy Award, and Peyton Woodring, who was 94%, and his field goal percentage formed arguably the best special teams trio in all of college football in 2025. He's another walk-on guy. He walked on at UCLA, broke his foot before he ever played a game, redshirted, waited 3 years for the starting job, then transferred to Georgia, won the highest award at position, and was never a scholarship player, at least not initially. Had to earn everything he got. That persistence and patience, 6 years of college, one major injury, a transfer, and a national award is a character story. He originally played center and tackle in high school before transitioning to long snapping at Rubio Long Snapping Camp. That's hilarious. It's a guy I went to school with who was always a big sports guy. Just one of those guys, he watch every, baseball, whatever. His dad was everything was sports. His whole life was sports. His dad's whole life was sports. He was in every sport. He played every sport. You kind of lose touch with people over time. But I remember kind of his name was Chris Murphy, actually. I remember reconnecting with him at some point, probably high school age, and long snapping was like his thing. I thought it was kind of funny. But then I thought it was probably brilliant because, it's not as much competition out there. He went to St. Ignatius Prep in San Francisco, one of the big major pipeline high schools. But that's about it for Bo Gardner. The other guy on the consensus board considered a draftable long snapper is Luke Basso, 6'3", 220. Had a very good year in 2024, pretty bad year as far as his grade, 59.7 in 2025. Again, for long snappers, apparently this means nothing. But he's a hometown kid, grew up in Lake Oswego, attended Lake Ridge High School, dreamed of playing for Oregon his entire life, proactively reached out to Oregon's coaches himself, cold calls, texts, Twitter DMs because he was determined to play for the Ducks. Committed within a week of getting the offer. He said, "I'm literally living my childhood dream." Went on to say, being on the team now is kind of seeing kids from Oregon be less and less on the team throughout the years. I just feel very grateful and I'm here and that I get to represent the state that I love very much. He was a linebacker and center who didn't even know what long snapping was until his sophomore year of high school. Special teams coach told him to go to snapping camp because he already knew how to snap as a center. He went, fell in love, and within 2 years was the number 3 ranked long snapper in the country. The transition from what is that to 6-star rating to Mel Kiper's number 1 ranked long snapper is a great trajectory story for Basso. Joe Lorig, who developed Chris Stoll into the Patrick Manley Award winner at Penn State, said Basso was markedly better at the same time, at the same developmental stage. That's the kind of endorsement that carries weight in the NFL front offices. If the guy who built a Manelli winner says this kid is better, scouts take notice. So there you go. There's a couple other things. That's about it. If you're looking for long snappers with high PFF grades, Eli Stein out of Cincinnati. He is at consensus 685. You got Nate Merchant at 681. So there's not much. Bo Gardner would be the next highest. So there you go. Why don't we take a break here? When we come back, I want to very briefly touch on a couple of the grades that are there, but you probably don't care. And then we'll get to the one everybody cares about, which is the returner. Take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so a couple of the grades that they do lay out here are field goal extra point defense, field goal extra point offense. So what we're talking about is when we're doing kicking operations, you got guys trying to block the kicks, and you've got guys trying to block the guys trying to block the kicks. Just want to go through a couple of the names because it's interesting. On the defensive side, these are guys who are trying to block kicks and whatnot. Of the guys that are, let's call it draftable, there's not many. Wesley Williams, defensive tackle out of Duke, has an 82.5 grade. He's at 365. That's probably UDFA territory, but whatever, close enough. Safety Peyton Bowen out of Oklahoma is at 300. So roughly 7th round-ish. He has an 85 grade. Again, these are the guys trying to block kicks and stuff. Cornerback out of South Carolina State, Jared Washington, is at 338. He has a 90 PFF grade. Ethan Burke, edge rusher out of Texas, is at 409. That's a pretty big stretch, but, it is what it is. He has a 90 grade. The one guy that's actually really high on the list, probably too high for the Packers, but certainly worth noting for all the other teams, Keith Abney II, cornerback out of Arizona State, who's currently consensus 44 overall, has a 90.1 field goal extra point defense grade. Otherwise, you have Amari Harvey, cornerback out of Georgia Tech at 330 with a 90.4, and Avery Smith at 412, cornerback out of Toledo with a 90.6. So, if you're specifically scouting guys to get after those kicks, not that that's really a thing, I don't think, but there's a couple guys. Conversely, if you're having problems with your kicks getting blocked, you need better blockers. So, on that list, first of all, number 4 overall, Francis Mauigoa, offensive tackle out of Miami, Florida, with a 79. Riley Nowakowski, tight end out of Indiana, is at 211. Keelan Rutledge, a guy that is a little bit more well-known and available to everybody. He's consensus 92. Interior offensive lineman out of Georgia Tech has a 79.4. A bunch of guys that are not going to be drafted at all, 700s, 800s. But then we have another Miami, Florida offensive lineman, Inez Cooper, who is consensus 193. He has an 81 grade. Otherwise, the only guy that would be a little bit of a stretch, but whatever, is Tyler Duzansky, who is a long snapper out of Penn State. The top 3 are actually all long snappers, but Tyler is the only one potentially draftable. If we're just looking at the miscellaneous, this is a catch-all. It includes everything, by the way, so if you're good at field goal, this, that, or the other, fine. These are the top overall PFF grades. We're going to start with anybody that's, 80-ish and above, Again, there really aren't a ton when you're talking draftable. 454, 581, 729, 672, 700, 484. And then we get to Danny Dennis Sutton, edge rusher out of Penn State. He has an 83 special teams grade. He's consensus 85 overall. So he's in that third round range. Amari Harvey, cornerback, Georgia Tech at 330. Carson Sherrar, linebacker out of Iowa at 331. Then you've got probably the only guy really worth talking about is Mikhail Kamara, edge rusher out of Indiana, a lot of Indiana. He has an 85 special teams grade. The top three are Wesley Williams, 365, Ethan Burke, 409, and Corday Sidnor, 752. Not really worth mentioning. So not a ton of elite special teamers necessarily. I mean, there's good. I mean, I'm not going to go through everybody, but I mean, if we go from like 70 and above, you're talking about how many different prospects here? About 60. So obviously a lot of these guys are draftable. But with that said, why don't we look at the return grades, the kick return, punt return, and then the cumulative grades and whatnot. As far as the kick returners, there are not a ton. There are 4 of them that have grades in the 70s or higher, nobody in the 80s or higher, and 2 of them are in the 700s on the consensus board, not super worth talking about. You have Lorenzo Styles Jr. of Ohio State. He's 704. Logan Diggs is at 769, running back out of Mississippi. But there are 2 guys that have pretty high kick return grades. Again, statistics are different. How people are evaluated is all different, but this is just kind of, if you look at draftable guys with good kick return grades, there's 2. So second from the top is a guy we've definitely talked about, and that is running back Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame. As for my big board, by the way, I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this as far as special teams. What I think I'm going to do is just, there's sort of a news feed section. This is where kind of breaking news and notes type stuff will go. I'm going to make notes about them being in special teams, and I can apply tags to that. And so I will add a special teams tag, which can be searched right from the outset on the big board. There's a thing called filter by tags. So you can go click on special teams, and it'll have all of the guys that have special teams tags in it, which will include guys like Jadarian Price. And the note will simply say second highest kick return grade in the draft class via PFF. That's really all it'll say with the 77.6. But again, for me, this is all just about note-taking and organizing all this stuff so I have it. We don't need to go through his entire draft profile because we've already done that. We've done the running backs in the top 100. But it is worth looking at his specific statistics. So he had 12 kick returns for 454 yards. 102 yards was his longest. He had 2 touchdowns in those 12 attempts, which is remarkable. 37.8 yards per return. In his career, he has 22 returns. 36.3 is his average, which is still fantastic. I mean, even in 2023, when he did it 10 times, he had almost 35-yard average. He also had a touchdown then in just 10 attempts. So in his 22 kick returns, he averages 36.3 yards and 3 touchdowns. 0 muffed kick catches or whatever in those attempts. So pretty incredible. But that brings us to our one unique prospect, and that is Berrien Brown, wide receiver out of LSU, currently on the consensus board at 225. Listed by Pro Football Focus at 5'11", 185, 22 years old, so a little bit undersized, not super old at all. As far as so kick return is definitely something he's better at than punt return. Although, to be clear here, we're just going through special team stuff first. 3 years at Kentucky before going to LSU. His first year at Kentucky was his only time having a significant punt return role. 6 punt returns, 88 PFF grade as a punt returner. He returned those for 28 yards, which is a very low average, but they seem to like him a lot. I don't know what he did so well. After that, he had 3 opportunities and then 1 opportunity, and LSU did not use him as a punt returner. As a kick returner, however, over those 4 years, he had 16, 16, 18, and 15 return opportunities. So every single team, both teams in every single year, viewed him as a kick returner. 65 total returns for nearly 2,000 return yards. 103 yards was his longest. However, check this out. How long were his longest kicks in each year? Because obviously a 100-yard return is rare, especially since, it's not that many opportunities. His most was 18. In his rookie year at Kentucky, he had a 100-yard return. In 2023, he had a 103-yard return. In 2024, he had a 99-yard return. In 2025, he had a 99-yard return. He had touchdowns in every single season and 3 in 2023. That is to say, he had 65 kickoff returns for nearly 2,000 yards. 103 yards was his longest. Nearly 30 yards per return on kick returns. I got excited because I was thinking punt for a second, but it's still pretty good. 6 touchdowns. Just 2 fair catches. How do you only have 2 fair catches in your career out of 65? This guy just does not call for a fair catch ever. He has 2 muffed punts. He has as many muffed punts as fair catches, and that's not knocking him on his muffed punts. So ridiculously electric returner. As a receiver, really nothing very special. His receiving grades went from 72 to 62 to 64. Transfers to LSU, has a 66. He had, 53 receptions, 532 yards, 10 yards per reception, and 1 touchdown at LSU. So certainly not remarkable, but I don't think you're bringing him in to be a remarkable wide receiver. He is a number 4, 5 receiver, whatever he is on your roster. Oh, and by the way, he is your kick returner. Possibly your punt returner. I don't know. A little bit more about the guy. He, not surprisingly, has lightning fast speed. Legitimate track athlete, ran a 10.49 second 100 meter in high school. Zebra Technologies, GPS, had him at the Senior Bowl at nearly 21 miles per hour, which in and of itself doesn't seem that impressive. It was the fastest speed recorded by any player at the event. Former Kentucky teammate Trevin Wallace claimed Brown had hit nearly 23 miles per hour in practice. That's obviously much more of the impressive side. His 2023 return against Louisville saw him reach 22.6 miles per hour on a 100-yard touchdown, faster than any NFL player tracked that season. When Brown fielded the opening kickoff of the 2025 Texas Bowl against Houston, he could have been anywhere else. Many draft-eligible seniors opted out of the bowl games that December. Instead, Brown suited up for a 7-5 LSU team, fielded the kick at his own 1-yard line, cut right at the 25, and outraced every Houston defender 99 yards for a touchdown, setting an SEC all-time record with his 6th career kickoff return score. It was LSU's first opening kickoff return touchdown since 1978. One more would have tied the NCAA record. Brown finished his career the same way he started it, taking a kickoff to the house. Before LSU's November 29, 2025 road game at Oklahoma, Brown used his cleats to tear up a chunk of grass on the Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium field during pregame warmups. The video went massively viral on social media, drawing both cheers and criticism. It was one of the more memorable pre-draft personality moments of the cycle, and the kind of thing NFL teams will ask about in interviews. We've seen this before. I've seen other teams do this. I don't know if some people view it as positive or negative. I would take it as a positive. The people that take this stuff that seriously, who are like, screw you and screw your house, I love that stuff, man. As long as you can back it up, I love that stuff. All right, let's move over to punt returners now. There are quite a bit more talented punt returners, or highly graded punt returners, than kick returners. And so I'm going to be a little bit more stingy with the grades for the sake of time. At the bottom end, with an, we'll call it 80 grade, 79.7 punt return grade, is Hank Beatty, or Beatty, not sure how you pronounce it, at consensus 279. He is a wide receiver out of Illinois. Another smaller guy listed at 5'11", 185. He was at Illinois for 4 years. Only 2 kickoff returns, but 38 punt returns, and he really took off in 2024. He only had 3 in his first 2 years. In 2024, he had 22 punt returns for 309 yards, 59 yards being his longest, 14 yards per attempt, 1 muffed punt, 78 punt return grade. In 2025, he had 13 returns, 213 yards, 69 yards being his longest, 16.4 yards per attempt, 1 return touchdown, and 1 muffed punt. He definitely had more production as a receiver. He was a slot receiver. In his final year, 69 receptions, 861 yards, 12.5 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 82 grade, 81 receiving grade, 94 drop grade because he had 0 drops. In fact, he has a 2.8% drop rate, which is really remarkable. Not that he played a massive amount, but he was targeted nearly 140 times over his 4 years at Illinois and had 3 drops in his entire career. So that's incredible. He did add a little bit of rushing. In 2025, he had 5 attempts for 49 yards and a touchdown, 76 rushing grade. So kind of a do-everything. He's a returner, so you use him in that capacity. After the catch, behind the quarterback, behind the back, gadgety stuff. But a little bit more about him. In 2025, in the season opener against Western Illinois, Beatty returned 4 punts for 133 yards and a 69-yard touchdown. The first punt return touchdown for Illinois since Viangelo Bentley in 2013. The 133 punt return yards shattered Red Grange's 102-year-old program record of 125 set in 1923 against Nebraska. Beatty said, "I didn't think I would ever break a record by Red Grange, but I'm just grateful for everybody around me who helped me do it. For a small-town kid from Rochester to etch his name alongside the Galloping Ghost in the Illinois record books is kind of a story moment that defines a college career." He wasn't just a receiver in 2025. He threw a touchdown pass to Luke Altmaier on a trick play. He scored a rushing touchdown off a direct snap in the Wildcat. He broke records as a punt returner. He was the only player in America to score 4 different ways, passing, rushing, receiving, and punt return during the season. He also carries a 3.87 GPA as a marketing major in the Gies College of Business. He became the first Illinois football academic All-American since Ryan McDonald, 2008. A 17-year gap and only the 3rd wide receiver in program history to earn the distinction, joining John Wright Sr. and John Wright Jr. So, pretty intriguing prospect. Then we got Jordan Dwyer, who we're going to skip because he's at about 440, bringing us to, go ahead.
Someone is at the front door.
There you go. Kevin Coleman Jr., wide receiver out of Missouri, who is currently on the consensus board at 121. Actually, I already have a note on him so far. Says, another player from the scoring side of the ball, Coleman was quick and fast all week, making him tough to cover. He showed a great burst of speed and ability to run away from opponents. He also caught the ball exceptionally well and did a great job adjusting to make the catch at full speed. Coleman is not a big receiver, measuring 5'10", 174, but his big play ability is enticing, so obviously another smaller prospect. So he spent 4 years at 4 different colleges. 2022, he was at Jackson State. There he had 16 kickoff returns and 6 punt returns, so he was primarily a kickoff returner and did pretty well, 73 kick return grade. Next year in 2023, he goes to Louisville, has 4 kickoff returns but 25 punt returns, 53 punt return grade, so not very good at all. Then he goes to Mississippi State in 2024, has a 62 punt return grade, so kind of eh. And then he goes to Missouri and has an 83 punt return grade. 15 returns, 189 yards, 67 yards was his longest, 12.6 yards per attempt, and a touchdown. Now, I will say, this is probably fluky based off of that 1 touchdown. He has had 4 years of punt return ability, and it's mostly been average to below average. And if you look at the week-to-week, he is grading in the 60s every single week and then has a 90.4 the one week he has a touchdown. We'll go over it anyways, but this one might be a little bit more fluky. So again, smaller guy, 5'11", 180-ish, whatever. Number 1 overall prospect in the state of Missouri coming out of St. Mary High School in St. Louis, consensus 4-star recruit, so pretty highly ranked guy. When Kevin Coleman committed to Jackson State in January 2022, the national media framed it entirely through the Deion Sanders lens. Coleman was one of the biggest recruiting prizes in Jackson State history, joining Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter at an FCS program that suddenly had Power 5 caliber talents. What got lost in the spectacle was that Coleman wasn't just there for the cameras. He outplayed Hunter on the stat sheet as a true freshman, winning SWAC Freshman of the Year. His 7-catch, 137-yard, 1-touchdown Celebration Bowl performance against North Carolina Central, including an 85-yard touchdown from Shedeur Sanders, was the best individual game of Jackson State's season. When Sanders left for Colorado, Coleman didn't follow that independence, choosing his own path rather than riding a brand. It tells you something about the kid's wiring. 4 schools, 4 playbooks, 4 starters. In other words, 4 different schools, but he started in each one. At Jackson State, under T.C. Taylor's staff, at Louisville, under Jeff Brom, at Mississippi State, under Jeff Lebby, and at Missouri, under Eli Drinkowitz and Kirby Moore. Parallels between Coleman and Luther Burden are almost eerie. Both grew up in St. Louis. Both were top-rated prospects in Missouri. Both shared Post-Dispatch Co-Player of the Year honors. When Coleman transferred to Missouri for the final season, he had inherited Burden's number 3 jersey and slotted directly into the slot role Burden had vacated for the NFL. Missouri running back Jamal Roberts, Coleman's former high school rival, personally recruited him during the Mississippi State-Missouri game in November 2024. Coleman entered the Senior Bowl in late January 2026 as an early to mid day 3 projection, according to ESPN. He left Mobile, Alabama as arguably the best receiver of the entire week. On day 1, he torched defenders in one-on-ones, dusting opponents on slants with lightning-quick feet and beating Ohio State's Davison Igbinosun. Day 2 brought more of the same. Day 3 featured a ridiculous concentration touchdown grab in the red zone one-on-ones that went viral on social media. Multiple outlets labeled him completely unguardable. PFSN draft analyst, who had Coleman as the number 66 overall prospect heading into the week, said the performance was just validation. Then, next up, we have Zachariah Branch, who is a legit wide receiver prospect, currently on the consensus board at 49 overall. He is a return guy across the board. He has 39 kickoff returns. By the way, 2 years at USC, 1 year at Georgia. 39 kickoff returns, 44 punt returns, although he's primarily a punt returner based on his grades. He 19.7 yards per attempt on kickoff returns, which is not remarkable. He did have 1 touchdown in 2023, but his grades have been 63, 56, and 59. On punt returns, he has 44 returns. 75 yards was his longest, 13.5 average, 1 touchdown that same year, 2023. 3 muffs. But his grades, 91, 65, and 87. I don't know what his, career punt return grades are, but I'm guessing they're pretty remarkable. Another guy listed at 5'10", 180. They're all really small guys. As a receiver, had a big breakout year once he moved to Georgia. So 2 years at USC, 300 yards, 500 yards, 3 touchdowns over the 2 years, 68 and 67 receiving grades. Goes to Georgia, 81 receptions, 87% receiving rate, 811 yards, 6 touchdowns, 83 receiving grade, 90 drop grade because he had 2 drops, which is 2.4%. His career drop rate, 4.8%. Again, very undersized, which is going to cause some issues, but a legit receiving threat on top of potentially a really solid punt return threat. Funny enough, the NFL comp that I have for him is Jaden Reed, so give you a little bit of an idea. But Branch Family Tree reads like an NFL Films documentary. Great Uncle Cliff Branch ran the 100 meters. We don't have to go through all of this because I'm guessing we already did him, but ran the 100 meters in 10 seconds at Colorado in 72, won 3 Super Bowl rings with the Raiders, was inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Cliff died in 2019, but not before imprinting lessons on his great-nephew. Zachariah has spoken openly about his influence, saying, "He told us to keep our heads straight, give us tips on how to approach certain things. They were both undersized speed demons who terrorized defenses from the slot and in the return game." Apparently, Kirby Smart's 12-year-old son is the one that scouted him. He kept showing his dad film of Branch's punt returns and begged him to pursue him in the transfer portal. It's pretty hilarious. Zachariah and Zion Branch are a package deal and always have been. They transferred together from USC to Georgia. This is his brother. Zion, the older brother by 17 months, is a safety who played a reserve role in both programs. Their father, Shiva Branch, played fullback at San Jose State, became a strength and agility coach who trained both sons from the time they were old enough to run. Branch has publicly discussed wanting to compete in the 2028 LA Olympics in track and field. That's pretty cool. So, anywho, all right, what else do we have here? Desmond Reed is at 380. We'll leave him alone, but he's a running back out of Pittsburgh to maybe keep an eye on. And that brings us to our final two. Colin Lacey, wide receiver out of Louisville, is at consensus 276. Dude has been in college for a while. He was at Southern Alabama for 4 years. After that, he transferred to Louisville, where he was for 2 additional years. As a receiver, his 2 final years at Southern Alabama were pretty solid. In fact, he had 91 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 7 touchdowns in 2023. But once he transferred to Louisville, it kind of went downhill. 62 receiving grade and then 68 receiving grade his final year, 600 yards, 2 touchdowns. But that's where the returning comes in. So he does have, first of all, 35 kick returns, 101 yards and a touchdown, 23.8 average. 2024 is the only time he graded out well, but had just 5 returns. He had 12 in 2025, but had a 55 grade. The real talent seems to be in punt returning. He has 88 total punt returns over his college career, 953 yards. 93 yards was his longest return, 10.8 average, 3 touchdowns. And this last year was his best. So his final year in Alabama, 77.6 grade was solid. Transfers to Louisville, has 5 punt returns, didn't do a ton, but still had a 74 grade, with 25 yards being his longest return. 2025, he gets the full-time gig. He gets 26 punt return opportunities, 91 PFF punt return grade, 454 yards, 93 yards was his longest, 17.5 per attempt, which is wild, and 2 touchdowns. It's funny, he's like 5'10", 190. Basically, every single person we've looked at so far, there's multiple different NFL comps. Every single one of them has at least had one reference to Khalif Raymond. They're all just Khalif Raymond. But 3-star recruit. Story begins and ends in Mobile, Alabama. He grew up there, starred in Faith Academy, played his first 4 college seasons at South Alabama in Hancock Whitney Stadium, then returned to that same stadium for the 2026 Senior Bowl as an NFL prospect. He transferred from originally a running back to a receiver to a returner. 2024, he suffered a broken collarbone, came back obviously 2025 and was able to do what he did. 2025 season opener against Eastern Kentucky, Lacey took a punt 93 yards to the house, the second longest punt return touchdown in program history. 3 weeks later against Bowling Green, he returned another punt 75 yards for a score, becoming the first player in Louisville history with 2 punt returns of 75-plus yards in a season. They weren't fluky touchdowns. Lacey's punt return ability was consistently elite all season, averaging 20 yards per return and earning midseason All-American recognition. If there's one game that encapsulates Lacey's total value, it's Louisville's 28-16 win over Virginia Tech on November 1st, 2025, the program's first ever victory in Blacksburg. With Louisville trailing 16-7, Lacey caught a dart from Miller Moss on 3rd down and sprinted 24 yards for a touchdown to pull the Cardinals within 2. 3 minutes later, he fielded a punt, split defenders up the middle, slowed to read the coverage, then exploded for a 63-yard return that set up the go-ahead score. He finished with 6 catches for 53 yards, 3 third-down conversions, and 193 all-purpose yards. Head coach Jeff Brom said it plainly afterward, "He just plays hard, and I applaud him. He doesn't miss any reps in practice." That brings us to our final prospect, and honestly the guy that everybody wants to talk about, wants to know about, has been brought up numerous times. A punt return, seen as a returner, but specifically a punt return phenom, and that is Caden Wetjen out of Iowa. On the consensus board, he's at 213, so he's very gettable. 5'9", 196, which actually makes him a little bit more robust than a lot of the guys we've been talking about. As a receiver, he offers nothing, which is why he's gettable. He has 200 total yards in his 3 years at Iowa. That's it. 200 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. With that, and he is a wide receiver, so it's not, whatever. He has 57 kickoff returns, so a lot, even though he's primarily going to be a punt guy. 57 kickoff returns, 1,570 yards. 103 yards was his longest. He has over 100 he has over 100 yards in his last 2 years. Averaging 27.5 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 2 muffed kickoffs. He has a 103-yard touchdown return in 2025 and a 102-yard touchdown return in 2024. That's what he's kind of okay at. As a punt returner, in his first year at Iowa, he had 8 returns, 63 yards. 21 yards was his longest, 7.9 yards per attempt, 61 PFF grade. Year 2, it jumps to a 77 PFF grade. He gets 26 opportunities, 337 yards, 13 yards per attempt. 85 yards was his longest and included a touchdown. Then in 2025, it jumped up to a 95.4 punt return grade, 21 returns, 563 yards, 26.8 yards per attempt. That sounds like a kickoff return yardage. In fact, it almost is his kickoff return yardage. It was 28.5 as a kick returner, 26.8 as a punt returner. 95 yards was his longest, and he had 3 touchdowns. So he has 4 punt return touchdowns in the last 2 years, 3 in this year, 95.4 grade. Pro comp Khalif Raymond. First of all, his path to stardom reads like a Hollywood script. 0 stars, no FBS offers. JUCO, preferred walk-on at Iowa, who barely saw the field his first year. Wasn't put on scholarship until January of 25, after he had already won the Jet Award. Kirk Ferentz called him while he was out eating with friends to deliver the news. Being a walk-on, that motivates me even more, Wetjen said. I'm kind of glad I came in as a walk-on. It pushed me to be even better. Less than 12 months later, he was a consensus All-American. That's the kind of story that NFL locker rooms love. It speaks volumes about his competitive fire and work ethic. Tim Dwight is an Iowa football deity. The former All-American and Super Bowl champion held the Hawkeyes' career return touchdown record with 5 for nearly a decade. Wetjen didn't just break it. He did it with Dwight's blessing. Wetjen attended Dwight's football camps as a kid growing up near Iowa City, and the two developed a genuine connection. I have a good connection to Tim, and it's just been awesome, Wetjen said. He's been texting me every game. He's been motivating me and telling me to break his records. Wetjen's 6th career return touchdown, a 62-yard punt return against Michigan State, clinched the record on Senior Day at Kinnick. The symbolism was perfect. So remember, he has 4 punt return touchdowns and 2 kick return touchdowns. 6 total. Wetjen is an avid outdoorsman from small-town Iowa who bow hunts in his spare time. His biggest buck was 15 or 16 points, according to his own estimates. His high school coach noted he killed a lot bigger deer than most people have in their lives. His grandfather, Garth, described him as a little fireball as a kid. By the end of the 2025 season, opposing teams were actively trying to avoid kicking to Wetjen. Vanderbilt's punter in the ReliaQuest Bowl literally ran to the right and punted on the run, crossing the line of scrimmage in the process and drawing a penalty rather than let Wetjen field the ball. Michigan State, Minnesota, and others tried directional kicking and pooch punts. None of it consistently worked. When they did kick it to him, he made them pay. 3 punt return touchdowns in a single season, tied for the second most in Big Ten history. At some point, the question stops being why do they keep kicking to him and becomes what choice do they have? So there you go. I think there is kind of a problem, and we've faced this before. Maybe it's not as much now. I really don't know. It's obviously still going to be a benefit, but there is almost a ceiling to how much a guy can help you because they can always choose to kick it away. Now, that is going to be tough with, doing it every single time because if you're trying to directionally punt it out of bounds, you're not going to get anywhere near the length. You're not going to get any positive bounces toward the goal line or anything like that. So punters are going to have to be significantly more accurate, and you're probably going to get a lot better field position, but you're also not going to see Wetjen doing what you drafted him to do. Then again, on occasion, he will. So, okie doke, there you go. Again, everybody we've talked about today, I've been adding it to the scouting report, the draft guide that I've been creating. I'll have links to that in the description if anybody would like to subscribe to that. My goal is for this to be like Dane Brugler's draft guide, but better. Got a lot more prospects to fill in, but if we can get there, it'll be, in my opinion, better. It'll have more information the way that I would prefer it. Anywho, I got to get out of here. You all have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.